Welcome to the Online Success Journey podcast, your opportunity to discover and learn from entrepreneurs like yourself. This is not your typical podcast, but a place where you can get the real story and find out how real people encounter speed bumps and detours, but journey through to find success. Now here's your host for the Online Success Journey podcast, Patience.
Hello everyone and welcome to Online Success Journey. This is episode 81. Are you ready to join the clan? Today we have Andrei Polgar, an entrepreneur and the author of the Wealth Management 2.0. In other words, it's the only book out there which focuses on teaching those who make money online to invest that money wisely. Hello, Andrei.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. I know the clan is anxious to know your story, so let's get started with the basics. Can you tell my clan a little bit about your background, about what you did before you started your online business? Take us right up to the last job or business before you were online.
Yeah, well, I'm basically just a regular guy from Eastern Europe who taught himself HTML when he was like 12 years old, I think, who then moved on to having his first job as a freelance writer. I used to write articles for people in English, and that worked well. And then I decided to do my own thing. And my own thing led to me dropping out of college, focusing on business, focusing on making money. I also had, to take care of my family, so I didn't really have much of a choice. And one thing led to another, and I ended up going back to college, going after my bachelor's degree, after my master's, after my PhD. And here I am now, basically combining two worlds, if you will. On the one hand, anything related to entrepreneurship, business, investing, and so on. And on the other hand, we have, what I'm doing with my book, what I'm doing with my YouTube channel. So the academic dimension, with me being an economist by trade, so to speak.
Wow, what a great background, Andrei. Okay, what is the most dangerous belief an online entrepreneur can have?
Oh yeah, this is my favorite one for sure, because the most dangerous thing for you is to think that this stuff is easy. And it bothers me, time and time again to see how beginners, because through the nature of my occupation, I deal with a lot of beginners. And it saddens me to see how many people are starting to do this online thing with completely unrealistic expectations. Because on the internet, people love talking about their success stories, about how great and awesome they are. But nobody really wants to talk about the hard stuff, how at the beginning it can take a long time until you actually start making money, and that money is not going to be great initially, and then you just keep growing and so on. So I think the number one most dangerous thing is starting out by thinking that all of this is too easy. Now, my number one advice for people is always that when you're making plans, I would strongly recommend being pessimistic, because that way at least you won't be taken by surprise in a negative manner. The average beginner does the exact opposite. He comes on the internet seeing, maybe some kind of a get rich quick video or whatever. So he comes on the internet thinking, yeah, oh my God, this is going to be so easy. It's going to be a piece of cake. And when reality proves that this internet thing is a lot harder than he expected, that's when a lot of people just, give up.
Wow. Why do you do what you do?
Well, I do what I do right now because, I'm just following the dream. I'm doing what keeps me happy. But it wasn't always this way. I started out running my own businesses, offering, web development services, and basically doing my own thing on the internet, quite frankly, for one reason and one reason only: to make money, to support my family, to have a better life than what Eastern Europe. I come from Eastern Europe, by the way. So basically just me trying to get a better life on the internet than what would have been available for me in my own country. Now, fortunately, as time passed, I became better at this stuff. I started becoming more successful, started doing better financially as well. And right now I have the luxury of basically saying to myself, okay, I think I'm comfortable enough financially. I can pursue my dreams of writing books, of teaching people on YouTube, on doing meaningful things that make me happy rather than, just being involved in the day-to-day business grind, if you will. So at this point, I focus much more on following my dreams and on doing what makes me happy. And the things that make me happy right now are basically teaching people, sharing my experience with others. I like to think of myself as someone with the personality of a teacher. So through my books, through my YouTube channel, through my blogging that I occasionally do, this is pretty much the direction I try to head towards.
Mm-hmm. Man aside, how did you know you were successful?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it's in my case at least, it wasn't necessarily just one moment. When I said, okay, as of this point, I'm successful. It was more like, a gradual process in which time passes, and I noticed that the things I found difficult are now easy. When I noticed that some of the things that, like when I'm having a conversation with someone and I tell them stuff that to me seems blatantly obvious, and I see that person, oh my God, you're a genius. And I'm like, I'm not a genius. I'm telling you stuff that's obvious to me. And that's basically the moment when you realize that you've achieved competence in your field. It's not so much, in my opinion, a matter of how much money you make, although obviously that helps as well, but rather the point at which you realize, and it is a good feeling, the point at which you realize that, okay, I am genuinely competent at what I'm doing right now.
Mm-hmm. Can anyone be an entrepreneur, or some people are more cut out of it than others?
Well, I'm going to be honest and say that entrepreneurship and doing your own thing on the internet is not for everyone. As time passes, I interacted with a lot of people who came and went on the internet, and there are many pitfalls for people who choose this particular life. Because one, you have all of the freedom in the world, but to some people it can be a curse, So you have the freedom. But a lot of people use that freedom to watch funny videos on the internet all day, or to waste time, or to do something non-productive. And then obviously those people don't evolve. So this is one of the main reasons why a lot of people fail at doing their own thing online. They fail because they don't have the discipline it takes to maintain a good work ethic, even when they have all of the freedom in the world. So that's one example. Another example is represented by the fact that, frankly, some people are just not cut out for things that require them to take on risk. And if you're not willing, if you're not able, if you're not cut out for this kind of risk-taking, then you're probably not going to be a good entrepreneur. So there's another reason. So the politically correct answer would be to say, yes, sure, everyone can do it, just believe in yourself and so on. But realistically speaking, you do need certain qualities to do this. Just like, for example, with the qualities that I have, I might have not been suited for all sorts of other jobs. So I think that before deciding what to do with your life, it's good to get to know yourself, to know your pros, to know the things you have working in your favor, to know the things you're not good at as well. So I would say that no. Realistically speaking, being an entrepreneur I'd say it's definitely not for everyone.
What reassurance or encouragement have you got for my members of clan who are not just quite there yet? They are just beginners. They are thinking of starting a business, but they don't know if this is the right way. How can they be disciplined and keep focused to make sure they get really off the ground and start making money online or building the foundation online?
Okay, yeah, well, in my case, at least, I have found that there are two things in this world that are great at keeping you focused and disciplined and whatnot. The first one, and this is something I dealt with at the beginning of my career, is necessity. I had problems in my family. I basically had to make money to make ends meet and so on. And for this reason, I never really had the option of failing. I would have been devastated. My family would have been devastated if I had failed. So firsthand, I can tell you I've noticed that necessity is pretty darn good at making you stay motivated, at making you maintain your work ethic, and so on. The only problem with necessity is that it burns you out. You can do it for a while, you can do it for a month, you can do it for a year, but if you do it for too long, it's going to burn yourself out. And that brings me to the second aspect, which is a more positive one, which is doing what you love, doing what makes you hungry. Because if I think about the people I've met who have been, successful, who are competent in what they do, they basically all have this thing in common. This hunger, the hunger that motivates you to become better, to become successful. And the best type of hunger is that which comes not from necessity, but rather from within. I am doing what I love. I'm involved in a project that I love. So therefore, working on that project, it's not a chore. It's not a hobby. It's something I love doing. It's something I love doing more than playing basketball or watching TV or randomly surfing the internet. It's this kind of an attitude that helps you develop an edge, that helps you stay motivated, and so on. And this is why I'm personally trying to do that as well. So two things: one, necessity, because you just have to, and two, doing what you love and staying hungry.
Okay. In all these years, you've been an author, you've been on your channel doing your blogs and everything. Did you ever have a mentor at one point?
I probably didn't have a mentor per se, but I did have a lot of people that I learned from. I have a lot of people that I've interacted with who have been more successful than me, and as a beginner, I definitely learned from them. Maybe I didn't realize it back then, and they didn't realize it back then, but I have definitely come across really successful people from whom I've had a lot to learn, with whom I ended up collaborating in the future. Like, for example, we have Eric Borgos, the guy who wrote the foreword for my book, who sold board.com for, let me think, I think he sold board.com for $4 million back in the day. He then sold portfolios for millions of dollars and so on. He's a highly successful guy from whom I've learned. So while I didn't have a mentor per se, as in someone with whom I have a semi-official kind of a mentor apprentice relationship, I did definitely come across with a lot of people who were more successful than myself, and I do like to think that it rubbed off a bit.
Okay. What is the most valuable thing you learned from those mentors or those people who are highly successful you surrounded yourself with?
Well, I believe I've primarily learned how important it is to have a proper work ethic. Not that many people do. It's probably something that makes or breaks you as an entrepreneur, or regardless of what you do in life. I always had a lot of respect for people who had a solid work ethic, who were grounded in reality. And perhaps this is what all of the people I've learned from had in common. The fact that despite their success, they have always been grounded in reality. You have Eric, who is a millionaire, who is successful. He even sold a toy to Toys R Us, and he did all sorts of crazy and awesome things on the internet. But if you talk to him, he is just so amazingly humble and so amazingly down to earth that this is the kind of authenticity that impresses me in someone and makes me think that I have to learn from him. So I do try to have more of that in my life as well, and I do try to emulate that as well whenever I can.
Okay. What is the most valuable thing you have ever given away?
Now, that is easy, because the most valuable thing I've ever given away, and the most valuable thing I keep giving away, is my time. It was Gary Vaynerchuk who a while back had a good video, if I'm not mistaken, about what do people want from you? What do people want from me when they're watching my channel and so on? They want access. They want access to you. They want access to your experience. They want access to ultimately your time. And I feel that, like, for example, when I'm filming myself and putting that on YouTube and making a video, or when I'm sharing content in another way, I'm investing my most prized resource in something. I'm investing my time, the time it takes, to write a book, especially since I don't have the habit of writing short books, for example. When I write a book, I write a 458-page book, like Wealth Management 2.0 and things like that. So without a doubt, the most valuable thing I give to people is my time. When writing a blog post, when writing a book, when publishing a video on YouTube and so on, this is the most valuable thing I take from others, and in return, this is the most valuable thing I give to proverbially the internet, so to speak.
Okay. Let's talk about your business and your book. Tell us about your book.
Well, my book is called Wealth Management 2.0, and it is the best book in the world that teaches those who make money online how to make smart financial decisions. And strangely enough, it's the best book in the world because nothing like it exists. It's the only one. And I always found it ridiculous because if we just take a moment and think about how many people make money online at this point, how many people are freelancers, online entrepreneurs, Bitcoin investors, domain investors, anything else you can think of, we're talking about millions upon millions of people who make money online in one way or another. Now, on the one hand, I'm an economist, so this automatically puts me in a good position to help these people make better financial decisions, but I'm also one of them, I've been involved in so many online businesses. I've had one job in my entire life, and other than that, I've just been making money online myself. And I think that this combination, being an economist on the one hand and being someone who makes money online himself, on the other hand, gives me the ability to give people a good deal. Because on the one hand, I have the knowledge it takes, the academic dimension, if you will. But on the other hand, I also have the type of authenticity which helps me connect with my audience. I'm not the type of economist who spends his entire life in an ivory tower and looks down upon everyone and occasionally writes a book. In this specific case, I'm someone who is in a great position to understand his target audience because I'm one of them, And time again, I've noticed that people who make money online, smart people, obviously smart people, because if they weren't smart, they wouldn't have made money online in the first place. But I found it peculiar how a lot of times these smart people who are smart enough to make money online make silly financial mistakes. And over the years, I've noticed quite a few patterns. I've noticed that, people who make money online are, let's say, a special kind of breed, if you will. So for this reason, I said, okay, enough is enough. I'm going to write a personal finance book for these people. I'm going to write a book that teaches people like me who make money on the internet in one way or another, a book that teaches people like me how to manage that money properly, how to invest properly, how to make smart financial decisions, and so on. Definitely this desire to fill the gap, it was definitely a gap. You have millions of people who make money online, but nobody ever thought about writing a book for this specific audience. And I said, okay, enough is enough. I did it myself.
Okay. Why the book now? Because it's been online for a long time. So why did you come up with the book now? And why did you come up with the Wealth Management 2.0 title? Why did you call it that?
Well, I like to think of myself as, an economist 2.0, as in the next generation of economists, someone who is deeply connected not just to the old world, but, to the new world as well. For example, in my book, I talk about investing in domain names, investing in websites, investing in cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, investing in through peer-to-peer lending platforms. I definitely have the type of insight and expertise that most other economists don't have. And I've probably decided to write the book now, as in, last year, because I thought I reached the point when I'm competent enough to be confident in my ability to provide value through this book. I've said it was basically just me looking back and said, oh my God, I've done so many things. I've done web development. I've ran hosting businesses, an auction platform, a small escrow service. I've done so much stuff on the internet. I've seen the internet under the hood, so to speak. And I'm also a passionate economist. So I said, okay, at this point, I think I'm able to meaningfully help people, and I just thought it was time. I'm a firm believer in the fact that you should do something when you're genuinely prepared for it and when you're able to, do it in a meaningful manner. So last year I've actually been working on the book for 3 years, but at that point I've said that, okay, I'm competent enough and I'm confident enough in my competence for me to say, great, it's time to actually do this thing.
Okay. Tell us one or two, three things. How we're going to use this book? Let's say I started my online business. I've made maybe 1 million or 2 million. How can I invest it wisely before I lose it all?
Well, I like to think of myself as an economist with a very logical and coherent approach. So I take people, and good, in your example, okay, you've made, $1 million. That would be awesome. Maybe you haven't made $1 million. Maybe you've only made, I don't know, maybe you've only set $10,000 aside, maybe 10 million, who knows. The first step is understanding, what you shouldn't do. This is what I start with in my book. Like, for example, if somebody asks a nutrition specialist for health advice, then the first thing that person is going to start with is what not to do. Like, you shouldn't smoke, you shouldn't drink excessive amounts of alcohol, and so on. I do the same thing as an economist. One of the first chapters is just me telling people, look, this is what I've learned over the years about people who make money online. These are the most common mistakes that those who make money online do. And these mistakes range from the obvious, like buying a car you cannot afford just so you can impress your friends, from trickier mistakes, like, for example, the things society tells us to do, but which are actually bad financial choices. So that's where you start, what not to do. Then you take the next step and you think about what kind of a mindset you need to have as an investor, how you should see the world around us. And I basically help people do that by teaching them what I like to refer to as the virtues of wealth management, which are essentially mindset-related aspects that I think are going to make their lives a lot easier. Then I move on to the idea of teaching people how to gather information, because making smart financial choices is all about knowing how to become informed as well. And of course, finally, I take things one asset class at a time and analyze absolutely everything. So I have half of the content in my asset-related chapter is related to traditional assets, such as, real estate, stocks, precious metals, and so on. And the other half is related to something you don't come across every day in personal finance book. It's related to exotic assets, like, again, domains, crypto, peer-to-peer lending, and so on. So as you can see, the book itself it's definitely a long book. It's a large 6x9-inch nonfiction book that has 458 pages. Is definitely not a light read. But I think that, for somebody like the person you described, I can safely say that if you read my book and only my book, you're going to be in pretty good shape. So this is what I try to do, to give people the type of, timeless, I like to think, advice, so that I can tell somebody, like the person in your example, okay, you made some money, now it's time to be smart about it, now it's time to be smart about how you're going to invest it. Read this book. It's not a light reading. It's definitely a book I spend a lot of time on, but I think that even if you read only my book and absolutely nothing else, you're going to be in pretty good shape.
Okay. When should I start investment? Should I wait to make $1 million, $1 million or pounds, whatever your currency is? Should I wait to make $1 million, or should I start maybe on 2,000, 5,000, 1,000? When should I be ready to start making investment?
You should definitely start as soon as possible, and it all depends. I think it's all a matter of making the right investments at the right time for you. Like, for example, if you're just someone who managed to set, let's say, 2,000 pounds aside, okay, that's perfect. I have one of my favorite sections in the book is about investing in yourself, because the most frequent question I get from people is precisely your example. Like, I'm a freelancer, or I've managed to set aside $1,000, 2,000, 3,000, so an amount that isn't impressive. What should I do with it? And I tell them the first step is always investing in yourself, because it's hard for me to think of anything that can give you a higher return. You invest in your education, you invest in, maybe equipment, maybe something else that helps you become better at what it is you do. And you make that investment once, and after drawing the line and figuring out how much money that investment is going to ultimately make you, the return on investment will end up being huge. And, it's precisely that which is going to enable you to make more money, to be in a better financial position, and to set more money aside. Then eventually you're going to have not 2,000, but maybe 5, 6, 7, 10,000, 15,000. Then comes the time to think about other purchases, other investments. Again, I believe in logical and coherent approaches. If you're a young person, this can mean buying your home at the right time and under the right market conditions, then knowing how to diversify, when to buy some stocks, when to buy some precious metals, how to buy precious metals, as in should you get the physical or ETFs and things like that, But the perfect time to start thinking about wealth management is right now, because even if you don't have a lot of money set aside, I promise you that if you start just thinking about this stuff, learning a bit about this stuff, you're going to thank me later. It's kind of like if you're in agriculture, now is the time to plant seeds, because if you do it now by investing a little bit in yourself, it may not seem like much. But in the long run, 10 years from now, you're going to look back and you're going to say, I'm so happy that I was smart enough to think about my finances, about the stuff that most people don't think about. I was smart enough to do that early on.
Wow. Okay. Apart from writing books, you have a YouTube channel. What is your YouTube channel? What is it all about? Tell us, and why did you open a YouTube channel?
My YouTube channel is called 1 Minute Economics. You can find it over at youtube.com/1 Minute Economics. And it basically just started out as me publishing 1-minute animations through which I teach people economics. I used to only do it once a month, because as someone who has, let's say, a little bit of experience with seeing how economics is being taught, and also someone who interacts with people from all over the world, I have noticed time and time again that people don't know their basic economics, And I understand this because, I'm an economist, I'm a professional. I don't expect people to spend as much time learning economics and staying informed and so on as I do. But at the same time, people need to understand that economics is all around us, Whether you choose to admit it or not, you're always making economic decisions. Like somebody may be saying, yeah, I never make economic decisions, I just keep my money in the bank. But I'm sorry, but by simply keeping your money in the bank, you're making an economic decision without realizing it. And you're going to be affected maybe by inflation, maybe by a bank collapse or something else. So ignorance is never an excuse. That's what I always tell people. And I realize that people are busy, that people have their own lives, they have demanding jobs or whatever it is they do. I realize that. And this ultimately made me decide to embrace the 1 minute concept. Because it wouldn't be fair for me to say, oh my God, economics is the most important thing in the world and I want you to listen to me 1 hour each day. That wouldn't make sense. Instead, I tell people, look, give me 1 minute of your time and I promise you that I'm going to teach you economics. This is the kind of value proposition that I think people needed at this point when everyone's assaulted with information, when there's so much noise out there and everyone's competing for your time and for your attention. I tell people, look, give me 1 minute and I promise you that you're going to be impressed with the results you're going to achieve just by listening to my stuff for 1 minute. And then one thing led to another. People started liking my work. Then I went on to publishing, a video every 2 weeks. And nowadays, I publish 3 videos per week. It's pretty much a solid part-time occupation for me. I publish 1 regular animation in which I teach people economics through, a 1 minute educational video. Then once a week, I have a question and answer session where people ask me something related to a topic I pick each week. And I answer. And finally, I also have a question as of recently, which involves me analyzing the most important current events from an economic perspective each week. So something that started as just me publishing a video once a month ended up becoming, I think it's pretty safe to call it a solid part-time occupation. And I primarily do it because it works. I do it because people give me feedback. I get feedback from people who aren't economists and who are happy with what they're learning. I get feedback from economics students who tell me, oh my God, I just had to sit through hours of boring lectures, and you helped me understand more through one simple to follow video than I understood in the entire class, So I got good feedback from people, and this is basically what motivates me to keep going, to keep doing this thing. It's not so much about the money as it is about just, feeling good that I'm able to help people and to contribute with meaningful content to this internet thing,
Wow. Okay, where can we find you? We want to know about your YouTube, your book, your services. So where can people find you?
I always like to stay in touch with people. I always try to reply to all emails, to the comments on my channel. So first and foremost, you can find me on youtube.com/1minute economics. You can check out the about section, which contains my email address. So if you have any questions or concern, please just send me an email, and I promise that I'm going to do my best to answer quickly. You can also find me on the official website of the book, which is wealthmanagement2.com, which also has a contact section with a form through which I can be reached. Even when I'm busy, I always try to answer emails as soon as possible. I like to stay in touch with people. I like to interact with people. So if you found out about me through a podcast and so on, let me know. This stuff is really interesting and fascinating to me. So let's get in touch. I am happy to answer any concerns or questions that people have. And I feel that this kind of interaction that I have with people keeps me grounded. As I've said at the beginning of this podcast, I believe it's definitely a quality worth pursuing, the idea of being grounded, of being connected to the real world. And I think that interacting with people is perhaps the number one thing you can do.
Wow. Okay. So, clan, there will be more from Andrei in a moment. If you are finding Andrei's journey interesting and you are ready to hear more, come and listen to the full version of the interview at onlinesuccessjourney.com. If you are on Online Success Journey already, click on part 2 of Andrei's journey and you'll get more tips and to help you with your online business and your YouTube economics. And also don't forget you can access all other Online Success Journey interview podcasts on the site as well. So that's a wrap, clan. Remember, success is a journey. Patience, Andrei.
This is not the end of the journey. We hope you've enjoyed listening to part 1 and want to be sure you know there is a second part to this and every journey podcast at onlinesuccessjourney.com, filled with even more success tips, uplifting stories, and even a bit of fun. There are dozens of episodes only available to the members of the Online Success Journey clan. Check out the website and click on Join the Clan for more information. Patience would like to thank you for listening to this podcast, and she has a free audio gift for you at her website. Go to onlinesuccessjourney.com for instant access to this gift. Of course, you know that listening to the journeys of others helps each of us chart our own path. So make sure you're subscribed to be notified as each new interview is posted. There are so many ways to stay connected to the Online Success Journey and to listen in. And if you're enjoying the podcast, we appreciate your help in telling others. One of the best ways to share the benefit you get is to rate and review it at Stitcher and other sites by clicking the stars or completing the ratings form, by clicking thumbs up and leaving a comment on YouTube, or liking and sharing the podcast on social media. To review the podcast within iTunes, simply open iTunes to the podcast, click on Ratings and Reviews, then write a review. On behalf of Patience, and until next time, thanks once more for listening. It is our hope that this podcast will guide you on your own online success journey.